Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanachhalakaya चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजना सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान् सगणदयिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमती राधानाथ स्वामी नामने विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमती भक्ति विधान स्वामी नामने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे विशेष आदि पाश्चात्य देश तारिणी गम कर दिवाचालम बंगम वंदे गिरिम यत्कृपातमहं वंदे श्री गुरुम दीनतारिणं परमानंद माधवम श्री चैतन्य हरि ओम तत्सत्। Hare Krishna. So welcome to the Chaitanya Pravaha series. From the auspicious tithi of Gaur Purnima, we have commenced the discussion of the Madhya Lila. We concluded the first 17 chapters of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which comprised the Adi Lila, which covered Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes for the first 24 years of the Lord's manifest pastimes, leading up to the Leela of the Lord's accepting sannyas. As we discussed in the last class, just quickly summarizing, the first couple of chapters of the Madhya Leela, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami uses to summarize the overall Shesha Leela. Shesha Leela means the remaining pastimes, which is another 24 years of the Lord's pastimes. The Lord performed his Leela on this planet for a total of 48 years. First 24 is Adi Leela, the next 24 is Shesha Leela. What is referred to as the Shesh Leela comprises of, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Madhya Leela and the Antya Leela. So briefly, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that Madhya Leela comprises roughly a period of 6 years. And most of these 6 years, the Lord spent in traveling across India. He not only went to the South India, where he spent a couple of years, all the way up to Cape Comorin, but he also traveled between Bengal and Jagannath Puri. He went to Vrindavan, he went to so many other places, Prayag, Banaras. And there are many beautiful episodes, many beautiful pastimes which will be covered in the Madhya Leela. The remaining 18 years of the Shesh Leela, the Lord primarily spent within Jagannath Puri. And out of these 18 years, the first 6 years were spent in Puri, but with a fair amount of interaction of the Lord with various devotees and various pastimes related to preaching. The last 12 years of the Lord's pastimes are the most confidential and profound part of the Lord's pastimes, where the Lord focused on accomplishing the inner purpose of the Lord's appearance. And what was that inner purpose? It was to be fully absorbed in that mood of separation, that feeling of intense love which Radharani feels in separation from Krishna. So that's how the overall 24 years of the Lord's pastimes are manifested. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, very elderly in age, felt that I should just quickly give a broad overview of the Lord's pastimes, just in case, Krishna willing, I may not live to see the day that I have completed the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita. So the first 2 chapters, he gives a summary list. It's more or less like a list. He did this, then he did this. In the last class, we discussed approximately the first 52 verses. This particular chapter is very, very long, 300 over verses. So we haven't actually come to the part where Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami starts the chronological narration of the Madhya Lila. But even before that, we discussed how he described broadly what we just discussed, how the pastimes are organized, and also how we discussed how he dealt with Rup and Sanatan, how he gave association to Haridas Thakur, the instructions he gave to Nityananda Prabhu. Some of these aspects have been mentioned. There's one more interesting pastime, because we were discussing about Rupa and Sanatan and how the Lord was so keen to give his association to 3 devotees especially, to Rup, to Sanatan and Haridas Thakur. Every day, if they were in Jagannath Puri, these 3 devotees, Haridas Thakur would be, because Haridas Thakur would practically never leave Jagannath Puri, but Rupa and Sanatan for Seva, they would be sometimes in Vrindavan, sometimes for various purposes, they may be traveling. But whenever they would be in Jagannath Puri, the Lord, after the Uppala Bhoga offering, he would personally carry the prasad of Lord Jagannath. Because these 3 devotees, the special thing about them was that they would not enter the Jagannath temple. Like what we discussed, Haridas Thakur because he was born in a Muslim family, Rupa and Sanatan because they were very closely, even though they were Saraswat Brahmins, they were not, because they were very closely associated with Muslims, they were, by orthodox parties, they were considered like outcasts. So to respect and not create any issue, they decided that they didn't enter the Jagannath temple. And Lord Chaitanya, who is Jagannath himself, would be so kind that he would personally come and give them darshan. So we go to see Jagannath and take his prasad, but here Jagannath in the form of Lord Chaitanya comes and visits them and brings his Mahaprasad. So that was one of the part of the daily activities that Lord Chaitanya would perform. He would not just give them prasad, but he would spend time discussing Harikatha in their association. We also discussed about how the devotees from Bengal would regularly, every year, take a yatra to Jagannath Puri. They would attend the Rath Yatra festival and stay on for almost 4 months, and this pastime went on for almost 20 years. That practically hundreds of devotees from Bengal, the Lord's close associates and their families would take, almost like a sabbatical leave from everything and they would just come and camp in Puri for 4 months every year. And the Lord would have wonderful time, wonderful association with them. Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami says that Lord Chaitanya had a very, very special, a very unique, special relationship with Jagannath, which all the devotees observe. Right from the time that he first came to Jagannath Puri. And that pastime we'll discuss in great detail later. I will not go into that right now. Because Lord Chaitanya is Krishna in the mood of Radharani, feeling separation from Krishna. He would be in this gopi bhav, a feeling of intense separation. And especially Lord Chaitanya, the very specific mood that Lord Chaitanya would manifest is that of the gopis seeing Krishna in Kurukshetra after a period of 100 years. So for those of you who are not familiar with this particular pastime, I will just mention in brief that after the Lord left Vrindavan, Akrura comes to Vrindavan, he takes him to Mathura. Krishna said he will return, but at an external level, Krishna never actually returned back to Vrindavan. Krishna killed Kamsa, spent some time in Mathura, then he continued to stay in Mathura, then eventually he went to Dwarka, became Dwarkadish, married so many queens, became such a big leader. After 100 years that Krishna had left Vrindavan, Krishna went along with the Yadus to Kurukshetra for a particular special eclipse because they wanted to go there and take bath. Knowing that Krishna along with Balaram and Subhadra will be coming there, the residents of Vrindavan also felt that now is a good chance to get darshan of Krishna, because for 100 years they were pining in separation from Krishna. Of course, we cannot even imagine the kind of mood of separation, the intense ecstasy of that separation that they felt. Anyway, I think I should just keep this brief. But when Krishna came there and the gopis came there and the gopis saw Krishna and Krishna saw the gopis, the gopis were seeing Krishna after 100 years. 100 years. So Krishna, the gopis had a very specific mood when they looked at Krishna. And we will discuss this mood in a while because Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami goes into that detail. But right now, just suffice to mention that was the mood, that intense separation. So whenever Mahaprabhu, of course, Mahaprabhu is in Radharani's mood, all the gopis would feel like that, but especially Radharani had that mood in her ultimate intensity. So Lord Chaitanya, when he would see Jagannath, he would always be in that. So from Mahaprabhu's perspective, he is the mood of Radharani, and Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra, when he would see them as if it is Krishna, Balram and Subhadra who have come from Dwarka and are now come to Kurukshetra, where he is seeing them again. And this mood would become even more intense when the Lord would see Jagannath on the Rathaka. And for 20 years, as we discussed, all the devotees from Bengal would also come, and the Lord would be dancing in ecstasy in front of Jagannath's Rath. This mood would get intensified many times more. And all the devotees would notice that whenever the Lord would dance in front of Jagannath, this particular mood of the gopis would get even more intensified, and the Lord would repeatedly chant again and again two particular lines every time he would chant. What are those lines? I'll read the lines verbatim first, and I'll translate them for you. Saita Parana Natha Painu, Yaha Lagi Madana Dahane Jhuri Ginu. Translation: I have gotten that Lord of my life, for whom I was burning in the fire of lusty desires. Now, this was quite odd, because verbatim, this sounds very odd. This sounds like the beloved pining for her lover. And Lord Chaitanya is a sannyasi, and that he would chant these two lines would be quite odd, and it was not easy for the devotees to understand. And it is said, especially in the later part of the day, the Lord would start chanting these two lines again and again and again, and he would start thinking in his own heart that I want to take Krishna back to Vrindavan. I want to take him back to Vrindavan. And in that mood, his heart would become filled with ecstasy. And why this is so is because obviously in the mood of the gopis headed by Radharani, seeing Jagannath, whom they saw as Krishna who has come to Kurukshetra, this Dwarkadish Krishna, they wanted to pull this Krishna to Vrindavan. And actually the inner significance of the Ratha Yatra festivity is precisely this. And that is why it is such a sacred, deep festival. Because the Rath Yatra is nothing but the ritual. It signifies the gopis pulling Krishna from Dwarka, Dwarkadish Krishna, pulling him from Kurukshetra to come towards Vrindavan. So they pull him from the Jagannath temple from Shri Mandir to Gundicha Mandir. Gundicha Mandir represents Vrindavan Dham, and they are pulling him in the Ratha. Come back to Vrindavan, come back to Vrindavan. So that is the inner significance. And Lord Chaitanya would get into that mood. Generally, most of us as devotees, we are not conscious of this particular understanding. It is important that even when we participate in Rath Yatra festivals, because we are not evolved enough spiritually to have that mood for ourselves, but at least in remembrance of that mood and remembrance of that pastime, if we perform this pastime to appreciate and glorify the love of the gopis, it will be very beneficial for us. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would, even in front of Jagannath's Rath, he would recite this verse again and again, and he would be dancing in front of Jagannath. Now, the dancing of Jagannath in front of the Jagannath Ratha is discussed in great detail in Madhya Lila, so we are not going to go into that right away, because right now he doesn't mention this elaborately. And even as he would dance, Lord Chaitanya would recite one more verse apart from these two lines. And that verse goes as something like this. I'll recite the Sanskrit. These sounds of these verses are very purifying. Then I'll tell the translation. Yah kaumara hara sa eva hi varasta eva chaitrak shapas te chonmulita malati surabhayah raudha kadamba nilaha sa chaivamsi tatapi tatra surata vyapara lila vidhau reva rudasi vetasi tarutale chetas samutkanthate. So the meaning of this verse is that very personality. And remember, this is what Lord Chaitanya is singing again and again as he's dancing in front of Jagannath. That very personality who stole away my heart during my youth is now again my master. These are the same moonlit nights of the month of Chaitra. The same fragrance of Malati flowers is there. And the same sweet breezes are blowing from the Kadamba forest. In our intimate relationship, I am also the same lover. Yet still, my mind is not happy here. I am eager to go back to that place on the bank of the Reva. Reva is the name of a river. On the bank of the Reva, under the Vetasi tree. That is my desire. Rupa Goswami captures this verse in his anthology of poems known as the Stavavali. He has written down this verse, but this verse was repeatedly chanted by Lord Chaitanya. Now, from this verse, it is very confusing because there's no reference to Krishna. There's not even a direct reference to Vrindavan. There's no reference to Radharani. There's a reference of a Reva river. There is a reference to a Vetasi tree. There's a reference to a lover, moonlit night, and so on and so forth. But it is very cryptic. So devotees would be confused. And here is a sannyasi who's chanting this verse, as if it represents a love affair between a mundane boy and a girl. There was only one person who understood the meaning of this verse. Can you guess who it was? Any guesses? Who is the most intimate associate? Yes.
Nityanand Prabhu.
Any other tries?
Haridas Thakur.
Any other tries?
Swarup Damodar Goswami.
Yeah, correct. So it is said only Swarup Damodar Goswami understood the real meaning of this verse. Now, the reason for this is, and we have discussed this briefly earlier, the reason for this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Radharani, so is Krishna in the mood of Radharani. But who's Radharani's most intimate maid servant? It is Lalita Sakhi. Most intimate. Nobody understands Radharani's heart more than Lalita Sakhi. Even Balaram Nityananda would not understand. To that degree, I am saying, of course. She is Lalita Sakhi is not a Jiva Tattva. And they are the Kaya Vyuha expansions of Radharani. The Ashta Sakhis are the Kaya Vyuha expansions. They are personal expansions. They are of a totally different Tattva. So she really, and that is why Lord Chaitanya would always be in the association of Swarup Damodar. And later we will discuss Ramananda Rai, because Ramananda Rai is Vishakha Sakhi. Lalita and Vishakha, you see, correct? Immediately next to Radha and Krishna, who are there? Lalita and Vishakha on either side. Who are those who are closest? Those who know exactly the hearts of the object of service. They are the ones who are the closest. And the farthest are those who have no idea what to do. Like ourselves. That's why we need to become the servant of the servant of the servant. If we directly try to be servant, we'll create a mess. Better we don't get that close. So Swarup Damodar Goswami understood. It is said one particular year, because Rupa Goswami would not be there all the time. He was in Vrindavan because Rupa and Sanatan were instructed by Lord Chaitanya, be in Vrindavan and fulfill my mission in this world. I am empowering you. And we have already discussed that, so I'll not revisit that point. So one year Rupa Goswami happened to be there. And he saw personally Lord Chaitanya reciting this verse and dancing in front of Jagannath. So when Rupa Goswami heard this particular verse, Rupa Goswami took a palm leaf and he wrote down something on a palm leaf. And then subsequently, Rupa Goswami went back to his bhajan kutir, wherever he was staying. And he placed this palm leaf on top of the roof of his small hut. Kept it there. He did not have any locker or any chest or something. Or Babaji's. Just kept it there. I must have tried to tuck it under something. I don't know how exactly it was kept. It was placed somewhere there for temporary safekeeping as he went to the ocean to take bath. This was a daily ritual. Even Lord Chaitanya would every day take bath in the ocean of Jagannath Puri. It's a very great tirtha, Mahodadhi, very special. There are many special tirthas in Jagannath Puri. This is one of them, the ocean. So the ocean is anyway pure, but it has become more pure because Lord Chaitanya has taken bath there practically every day. He and so many other devotees. So Rupa Goswami would go and take bath there. So while Rupa Goswami was taking bath, Lord Chaitanya, as per his usual routine, came to see Rupa Goswami. So he came to see, and it so happened that at that point in time, Rupa Goswami had still gone to take bath. Sarup Damodar Goswami happened to be there. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes to the hut, and somehow he notices that Rupa Goswami is not there. Somehow his eyes catch note of some palm leaf which is kept on top of the roof. So Lord Chaitanya, because he's the all-knowing Supreme Lord, he picks up that particular leaf and he starts reading it. And when Lord Chaitanya starts reading that particular verse, Lord Chaitanya becomes extremely ecstatic. And as he's reading that verse and as he goes into ecstatic mood, in comes Rupa Goswami after having taken the bath. He says, Lord Chaitanya, oh Lord Chaitanya. He offers his full dandavat obeisances. Sarup Damodar happens to come there and he sees the Lord is in ecstasy and he sees Rupa Goswami falling down. And Lord Chaitanya turns to Sarup Damodar Goswami. First of all, he raises Rupa Goswami who has offered his obeisances, and it is said he places Rupa Goswami on his lap. Lord Chaitanya places Rupa Goswami on his lap very affectionately, as if like a mother placing a child on the lap. And in great ecstasy, Lord Chaitanya starts offering various blessings to Rupa Goswami. And then he takes that palm leaf and he shows it with great excitement. He shows that leaf to Sarup Damodar Goswami and he says, see Sarup Damodar Goswami, Sarup, see. It is so amazing that Rupa Goswami has understood the intentions of my mind. Nobody has understood. Only you had understood what is the meaning of the verse that I was singing. Nobody else understood. But now, after having read what Rupa Goswami has written on this particular palm leaf, I can understand that he has also understood what was the actual meaning of what I was singing. So Sarup Damodar Goswami, he says to Lord Chaitanya, oh Lord, if Rupa Goswami has managed to understand your mind and intentions, that means he has received your full mercy, your full blessings, because without your full blessings, nobody can understand your heart. And that's also an important lesson, whether it is Krishna, whether it is Guru, unless we are especially blessed, we cannot actually understand what exactly it is that the Lord wants in a particular situation. So the Lord says that, yes, I am so pleased with Rupa Goswami that he has managed to understand. That is why I am embracing him. And I'm giving him all blessings and all the necessary empowerment so he can preach the bhakti cult. Now I'm convinced that Rupa Goswami is thoroughly fit to understand the deepest aspects of the mellows of pure devotional service. And that is why I think that, we should instruct him further so that he can explain all these things in detail to the world. So there's a very beautiful verse. Anybody knows by heart what is the Pranam mantra of Rupa Goswami? Anyone can recite, please? Initiated devotees, you're all expected to know by heart Rupa Goswami's Pranam mantra, because it is part of our regular prayers. Yes, Praveen Prabhu, you want to try?
Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadaktikam.
Wonderful, thank you. And what is the meaning?
I don't exactly remember meaning, but it is something like when Srila Rupa Goswami will grant his blessings to me, who has understood the inner heart of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yes, correct. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale. He who has established the real purpose of the mission of Lord Chaitanya, Manobhishtam, his actual heart. Of course, before you can establish, you have to first understand. So this particular special quality of Rupa Goswami is being referred to in his Pranam mantra as well. He understood the innermost secret. Now you may ask why Rupa Goswami knows this innermost secret. Because he is Lalita Sakhi's most confidential Manjari servant. So when Lalita Sakhi is assisting Radharani, Lalita Sakhi's chief assistant is Sri Rupa Manjari. So they are all inner circle. And that is why these associates have been chosen. That's why, you and me have not been chosen. Because we'll make a mess. At least for me, I'll make a mess. Because for such empowered services, those who actually know by realization the deepest secrets of devotion. This is not just secrets of any devotion. This is the secrets of Vraja Bhakti at its highest level. So in that way, Rupa Goswami was glorified. So this is a very, very defining pastime in glorification of the character of Rupa Goswami. So what is that verse which Rupa Goswami wrote down on that palm leaf? How many of you are curious? What did he write down? Anyone wants to know? Sridhar Prabhu wants to know. Okay, 3 people want to know. Okay, so the rest can close your ears. Okay. So the chapter goes like, the verse goes like this. So actually, to explain the verse which Lord Chaitanya composed, Rupa Goswami wrote another verse in Sanskrit, which actually explained the meaning of that verse. So I'll recite the Sanskrit verse and then I will explain the meaning. This verse is a verse which is spoken by Srimati Radharani. Because actually this verse is an expression of the heart of Radha. Priya soyam Krishna sahachari kurukshetra militas tathaham sarada tad idam ubhayo sangama sukham tathapi antak khelan madhura murali panchama jushe manome kalindi pulina vipinaya sprihayati. Translation is like this. My dear friend, now I have met my very old and dear friend Krishna on this field of Kurukshetra. I am the same Radharani, and now we are meeting together. It is very pleasant, but still, I would like to go the bank of the Yamuna, beneath the trees of the forest there. I wish to hear the vibration of his sweet flute playing the fifth note within that forest of Vrindavan. Again, this verse has also been compiled into the Madhyavali, verse 387 by Rupa Goswami. So this particular utterance by Radharani is actually expressing the mood of Radharani as she's seeing Krishna in Kurukshetra, wanting to pull Krishna. Yes, it's so nice I'm meeting you, Krishna, here, but I'm not happy to see you here as a king. We came to see you, but what are we seeing you? We are not seeing you with a dhoti and a flute and a buffalo horn and peacock feathers and flower garlands. We are seeing you with mukut, with royal clothes, with horses, elephants, weapons, so much opulence. While we are happy to see you, O Krishna, this is not how we want to see you. Radharani and all the gopis are thinking that this is not how we want to see you. We want our Krishna. We want the Vrindavan Krishna. They are hankering for Vrindavan Krishna. So in their heart, they were trying to pull Krishna to Vrindavan. Come back, come back. I don't want to see you in the form of a king. We want to see you in the same way we associated with you. We want you in the form of a cowherd boy who would frolic the groves of Vrindavan. We want you, Balram and Subhadra, come back to Vrindavan. We want to see you as Sri Nanda Nandana, not as Dwarkadish. I want to see you as the son of Nanda Maharaj. We want to see you in your Tribhanga Lalita form. Under the Kadamba tree, playing your. That's what we want to behold. So they were actually pulling. Come, come, come. Huh? So this meditation is the pinnacle of that loving separation. And Radharani would go mad in that separation. So that is known as Radharani's Mahabhav. It's known as the Madanakhya Mahabhav. So that state, which is the superlative state of prema, which no living entity can attain. We cannot attain that kind of Madanakhya Mahabhav that Radharani embodies. But Krishna wanted to taste that. That's why he, in the form of Mahaprabhu, is enacting that, because he wants to relish that intense mood. So Radharani also in that intense separation, not just when she came to Kurukshetra, but even when she was in Vrindavan, she was so mad in that ecstatic separation. If you remember when Uddhav came to Vrindavan, at one time Krishna felt that the devotees of Vrindavan are feeling so much separation, they may die. Because he didn't want them to die, he said, okay, let me send a messenger. So Uddhav came there. Uddhav came there and he met the gopis. And there's this beautiful scene where Radharani is talking to the bumblebee. There's a bumble. Anyway, I don't want to go into details. These are very detailed pastimes. There's a wonderful conversation between Radharani and the bumblebee, and Radharani starts speaking to the bumblebee as if the bumblebee is a doot, messenger from Krishna. And she's chastising the bumblebee. You are the messenger of that naughty Krishna, that Krishna who left us and went. So she's chastising Krishna by giving messages to the bumblebee. Anyway, it's a very, very sweet conversation, but it's a conversation which at an external level appears as if a person who's not in a stable consciousness is speaking things, because this is one of the things which happens in moods of intense ecstasy. Rupa Goswami explained this. I don't remember the technical term, but it's something like jalpan or something like that, which one starts uttering various kinds of things, almost sometimes incoherently, out of intense ecstasy. Why this is being mentioned is Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that even Lord Chaitanya going into that mood, even as he would be either in front of the Ratha cart or even sometimes with his own close confidential associates, would get into that mood like Radharani, sometimes incoherently start uttering various things. And when he would go into those intense moods of separation, Swarup Damodar, Ramanand Rai and others, had to contain him in the sense, watch over him as attendants so that he doesn't totally go berserk and, other people who are unable to understand these moods, they don't become disturbed. And as I mentioned earlier, especially the last 12 years of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's manifest pastimes, from the age of 36 to the age of 48, the Lord was almost always fully absorbed in this mood. And this is the pinnacle of attainment for the followers of Lord Chaitanya. See, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's preaching is not for us to think that, oh, I have Krishna, oh, I am with Krishna. That is not our approach. Our approach to Krishna is in the mood of separation. Now, this is a very big topic, so I'm not going to spend too much time. I just want to briefly mention this point. It's a very deep, profound point. Someday, as CC progresses, we will revisit this point at some time. We can discuss it in more detail. The safe way to approach Krishna is not by thinking that, oh, I have attained Krishna. The safe way to approach Krishna is thinking, oh, I am separated from Krishna. Where is Krishna? I don't have Krishna. Where is Krishna? Because Krishna is absolute, intense feeling of separation of Krishna is also a kind of union with Krishna. And that is a safe way to access Krishna, especially for conditioned souls like us, sadhakas. Even the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, they would not say that, oh, I am with Krishna. They would also sing, He Radhe Braja Devi ke chalalite, He Nanda Shuno Puta, Shri Govardhana Kalpa Pada Patale, Kalindi Vanni Kuta, Garjantam iti sarvato vrajapure, Chedair Mahavivvalau, Vande Rupa Sanatanau, Raghu Yugau, Shri Jiva Gopalakau. It's a verse from the Shad Goswami Ashtaka. I'll not go into the details of the translation, but essentially, summarily, it means that the 6 Goswamis would be running here and there across the land of Vrindavan, calling out, oh Krishna, where are you? Oh Radharani, where are you? Are you on the banks of Yamuna, or are you near Govardhan Hill? Where are you? We are feeling so much separation from you. So those who are great devotees, they don't say, oh, Krishna is with me. Oh, I danced with Krishna yesterday. Oh, when I offer to Krishna, Krishna eats from my hand. You don't take that kind of an approach. The approach is of separation, especially for followers of Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya also displayed that mood, and as his followers, we want to cultivate that mood. Of course, for us, it is very appropriate because actually we are really, really separated. We don't need to pretend. Anyway, so this beautiful pastime is mentioned as a very, very, very sweet pastime, just to give some indication of what is the essence of the mood that Lord Chaitanya would be absorbed. And Krishna's Kaviraj mentions that last 12 years, especially, he was absorbed in this. So now, having described all this, now Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami says, okay, now that I have given you all this background, now I want to start the chronological description of Madhya Lila. And he says, I'm going to just describe a few chief pastimes. I cannot describe everything because there are so many things. I'm just giving a synopsis. But I will give it in a chronological order so that you have a broad sequence of how the Lord's pastimes unfold. So I'm also going to just briefly mention. Now, some of these points or some of these pastimes will be such a brief reference that if you don't know anything about Gaur Lila, you will not understand anything, but it's okay. So do not worry about, oh, Prabhuji mentioned something, but I have no idea what it is. This is just a synopsis list. This is like a listing. It's like going through an index. If you have no idea about the topic, if you go through the index also, you will not understand anything. But if you know, at least you know, okay, these are the primary pastimes. So don't worry. All of these briefly referred to items will be discussed in great detail later. So, but I'll try to give a little context if it is too cryptic, so that at least you have some sense of the nature of that particular pastime. So he starts by saying that after Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, anybody remembers which place Lord Chaitanya took sannyas?
Gaya.
Katwa, Prabhuji.
Yeah, not in Gaya, in Katwa, correct.
Katwa.
Katwa, yes. In Gaya, he met his spiritual master, Ishwarapuri, Shri Ishwarapuri first. But his initiating spiritual master did not give him sannyas. Sannyas was given by another sannyasi by the name of Keshava Bharati. And he took sannyas from him in Katwa, which is also known as Kantaka Nagara. So that we have discussed already. So after the Lord took sannyas, the first thing that the Lord wanted to do was, now I have taken sannyas, now I want to be fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Because the Lord was given the name Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Sri Krishna Chaitanya means Krishna consciousness, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. So this whole Krishna consciousness terms comes from this phrase. Of course, Rupa Goswami also gives another very beautiful verse describing Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada explicitly says, this is the definition of Krishna consciousness. Anyway, I'll not go into that, otherwise I'll get deviated. Krishna Rasa Bhavita Mati. That is the definition. So, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. So the first thing he thought that which is the best place to be in Vrindavan, to be in Krishna consciousness, Vrindavan. So I want to go to Vrindavan. So Lord Chaitanya was fixated after sannyas. I am headed to Vrindavan. So he was so overwhelmed with ecstasy. The Lord was practically delirious in ecstasy, saying, I want to go to Vrindavan, I want to go to Vrindavan. He started proceeding in the direction of Vrindavan. So as he was going in that direction, now I'm telling this very briefly, the details of this pastime we'll discuss in subsequent chapters, but as he was proceeding, all the devotees headed by Nityananda Prabhu did not want the Lord to go to Vrindavan. So what they did, they told some group of cowherd boys who were standing nearby, you see the sannyasi coming, he's walking in this direction. He will, if he asks you which is the way to Vrindavan, you show him this way towards the Ganges. Don't show him the way towards Vrindavan. Okay. I don't know what bribe they gave him, the boys, but when Mahaprabhu asked, where is Vrindavan? Tell me, where is Krishna? Where is Vrindavan? They said, oh yeah, there. So the Lord went along that direction. It is said for 3 days the Lord was walking and walking and walking. Yes, continuously. In the areas which is known as the Radha Desh, that's the part of Bengal where the Ganges does not flow. And finally, he was guided along the way, as we spoke, towards the bank of the Ganges. And then along the Ganges, finally, he jumps in the Ganges and he starts coming, and he finally reaches Shantipur. So actually they deceive Lord Chaitanya to actually come to Shantipur. They say, oh, this is, they point to the Ganga and say that this is Yamuna. And Mahaprabhu jumps, oh, Yamuna, and he's dancing. And then finally he sees Advaita Acharya and he says, Advaita, what are you doing in Vrindavan, in Yamuna? And then finally it is revealed, oh Lord, you are not in Yamuna, you are in Ganges and you are in Shantipur. Oh, Nityananda has cheated me. So anyway, that pastime is discussed in detail, but he said, okay, come. So they take him, Lord Advaita Acharya takes him to his house. And that was the whole plan. The whole plan was that the Lord had left home. See, the whole reason, the reason for deceit is not for their own sense enjoyment. The reason why Nityananda and the other devotees did this, again, I don't know why I'm going into the details. Anyway, now that I've mentioned this point, I'll just complete. This is the problem, with me. I just get tempted to reveal too much. Anyway, then we'll cut short when we actually come to the pastime. But the reason Lord Nityananda did this is Lord Chaitanya he practically disappeared from the home without anybody knowing, and he took sannyas. So all the devotees, including Sachi Mata, were in so much anxiety. So they wanted that first the Lord should come back to Bengal and, come to the Navadvip area and meet all the devotees, including his mother, give some solace, and then the other things can be done. Obviously, they did not want him to go home because it's not appropriate for a sannyasi to go back home. So Shantipur was a good place. So they came to the house of Shantipur, and then, briefly it is mentioned there are many beautiful pastimes which happened there. And I've been to that home of Shantipur where Lord Chaitanya came and where Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda sat down and had their lunch. And actually it is said the first bhiksha given to sannyasi, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, was given by Advaita Acharya. And then the Lord did wonderful kirtan there. All the devotees gathered there. And actually, in one sense, even though it was meant to be a very pleasurable experience, actually it was very painful. Why it was painful? Because all the devotees saw the Lord as a sannyasi, the shaven head. It was too painful for all the devotees. But at least they were happy that the Lord has not just disappeared, because Vishwarupa had practically disappeared. Nobody knew what had happened to Vishwarupa, the elder brother of Lord Chaitanya. But at least here, he's still there. We know something. We know about him. So, Sachi Mata also came. Of course, the Lord's Purvashram wife, Vishnupriya Devi, she did not come because she's not supposed to come in front of her husband after he takes sannyas. But Sachi Mata came and, Lord Chaitanya fell at her feet. So there's a very beautiful conversation. I'll not go into that now. We'll go when the pastime comes. It's not mentioned here. These are all pastimes which are in detail in the subsequent chapters. It was a very beautiful conversation. And finally, the conclusion of that conversation was that Sachi Mata requested Lord Chaitanya, don't go to Vrindavan, be in Puri. Since Puri and Vrindavan are non-different, since Jagannath is Krishna, and they are equal. So Puri, Mayapur and Vrindavan are non-different. Since Jagannath, Puri and Vrindavan are non-different, why don't you be here? So Lord said, okay, yes, what you have said is correct. And if you are here, at least your mother will keep getting news, because so many devotees, Odisha and Bengal are next door. Vrindavan is so far away, and Vrindavan there's hardly any, traffic between Vrindavan and Bengal, especially in those days. So Puri, Rath Yatra is there. So many devotees are doing to and fro, and Bengal and Puri are not far. So the Lord agreed. So after all that happened and it was settled that the Lord would be in Jagannath Puri, the Lord started progressing towards Jagannath Puri. So the Lord was accompanied by Nityananda and a few other associates. So there are some pastimes which happened along the way. So a few pastimes are briefly mentioned. It is said as the Lord progressed towards Jagannath Puri, he visited the very, very famous temple of Kirchor Gopinath in Remuna, and the Sakshi Gopal temple, which is also not very far from Remuna. It's not very far from Remuna. And Lord Nityananda actually narrated the beautiful pastimes of Madhavendra Puri and Kirchur Gopinath, and also the beautiful pastime of Gopal deity, the Sakshi Gopal deity. And Lord Chaitanya was very, very happy to hear all these beautiful pastimes of how uh, Kirchur Gopinath's pastimes manifested, and also about the installation of the Gopal deity by Madhavendra Puri. So all these are described in detail, and we'll discuss them in great detail. These are very, very sweet, very beautiful pastimes, and discussed in considerable detail in the subsequent chapters. Then as they progress towards Jagannath Puri, it is said just short of Jagannath Puri, Lord Nityananda, in one particular pastime, near one river, Lord Nityananda broke the danda of Lord Chaitanya. So that place is known as the Danda Bhanga Nadi. So when that episode happened, then Lord Chaitanya externally he became very upset. He says, you all are, doing a lot of mischief. First you send me towards, Shantipur and this, and now you're breaking my danda. This Nityanand Prabhu is creating a lot of disturbance. So going forward, I am going to go to Puri by myself. You all follow me from behind. I'm not going to go along with you all. Because you're all very unpredictable. I don't know what you will do next. So the Lord went ahead, and Nityananda and the others followed at some distance. So it is said when the Lord reached, of course, there are a lot of details about how he entered Puri. I'll not go into that because it's not mentioned here. Very sweet pastimes. Anyway, so it is said when the Lord went into Jagannath's temple, first time, he rushed into Jagannath's temple and he ran towards the altar. He saw Jagannath, he couldn't control his ecstasy. He ran towards him and he fell down unconscious in ecstasy. And the servants and the guards of Lord Jagannath, they thought, who's this man who's just rushing towards the deity? So they, tried to stop him, and some of them were about to beat him up. But then Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya, who was the head priest of the temple of Jagannath and who was kind of the Raj Purohit for King Prataparudra, he noticed that this effulgent brahmachari is there, and he could recognize from the bodily symptoms that these are symptoms of Mahabhav. So he stopped all these guards, and he had Lord Chaitanya lifted and transferred to his home. So that pastime is described in great detail. So Lord Chaitanya comes back to his external consciousness, and there are very wonderful discussions and conversations which happen between Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya and Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya, actually, in his interactions with Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya, transforms Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya from a Mayavadi, an impersonalist, become a great devotee. So that's a very, very beautiful conversation. We have been fortunate, many of us have visited the home of Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya. It's a very, very beautiful place where all these pastimes happen. The place where Lord Chaitanya would sit, that place is there. That home is still there. So it's a very, very special place, the home of Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya. So this is described in great detail because there are many beautiful pastimes surrounding this particular episode. We'll discuss that in great detail. A quick mention that Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya is actually an incarnation of Brihaspati, the spiritual master of the Devatas. So after delivering Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya, it is said Lord Chaitanya decided that he wants to leave for a tour of South India. Because a sannyasi is supposed to be always traveling. Especially after a person becomes a new sannyasi, at least for some time, he is expected to be continuously on the move. The reason for this is that a sannyasi should not get attached. And the way to not be attached is to not stay in a single place for too long. And of course, some sannyasis and Babajis follow this for life, but at least for some time one is expected. Of course, Lord Chaitanya is beyond any rules and regulations, but under the pretext of traveling, he decided to tour South India. So the Lord spent a couple of years in his South India tour. Now that South India tour has been described in great detail in the Madhya Lila. A few brief references are made in this chapter. One of the references is that the Lord visited a place known as Kurma Kshetra, where he delivered a person known as Vasudev the leper. It's a very beautiful story. So after visiting the Kurma Kshetra, it is said the Lord also visited a very beautiful temple of Lord Narsinga known as Jia the Narsimha, very, very famous deity, South India. And he introduced everybody along the way, whichever village he would visit, he would introduce the chanting of the holy names. So in his South India trip, the Lord extensively preached all over India, wherever he traveled. It is said, I'll just take a few more minutes and then we'll conclude. At one place, as he was near the bank of the Godavari river, he was in a forest. Suddenly, on seeing that forest on the bank of Godavari, the Lord remembered Vrindavan and he went into the mood thinking that that forest is Vrindavan. At that particular place, the Lord first time met this very great devotee whose name is Ramananda Rai. We spoke about Ramananda Rai, that he's an incarnation of Vishaka Sati. So this was his first encounter. So this is a very, very beautiful pastime. Ramananda Rai was also a very great politician and very learned, very rich person, aristocratic personality. He was a governor in his region in South India. And this pastime also we'll discuss in great detail, but he happened and he spent quite some time discussing with him about spiritual subject matter. After meeting Ramananda Rai, the Lord traveled further south. He visited Tirupati, visited Tirumala Hills. He also visited the beautiful temple of Ahobal Narsinga. It's a very, very beautiful temple. There are 9 Narsingas in that area. So I've been fortunate with my spiritual master. We visited all these 9 temples, Ahobal Narsinga, very, very extraordinary place. Then the Lord traveled further south. He went to the very famous Dham of Sri Rangam on the bank of the Kaveri. He had the beautiful darshan of Lord Ranganath and he danced in great ecstasy in front of Lord Ranganath. A very, very famous deity. It's a very, very special deity. Sri Rangam is the capital of the Sri Vaishnavas, who are the descendants and followers of Ramanuja. Descendants means spiritual descendants of Sripada Ramanujacharya of the Sri Vaishnavas. So it so happened that it was Chaturmasya time, the 4 months of the rainy season. So the Lord made his residence in the house of a great Brahmana, very pure-hearted Brahmana by the name of Trimala Bhatta. For 4 months, the Lord stayed in that home because Trimala Bhatta saw the Lord. He invited the Lord and said, why don't you stay here for 4 months? Even up to this day, the room where Lord Chaitanya has stayed in the house of Trimala Bhatta is still there. That house is also still there. Trimala Bhatta was a great scholar as well as a great devotee. Trimala Bhatta and his brothers, they served Lord Chaitanya very nicely. And Lord Chaitanya also instructed and gave his association to Gopala Bhatta, who was the nephew of Trimala Bhatta. And he later became Gopala Bhatta Goswami. So I think I will stop here. We are stopping at verse 110. So here onwards also the pastimes in South India will actually continue for some time and then further pastimes will continue. So I'm going to take a pause here. Lord Chaitanya's Lila is very, very beautiful and so many details I get tempted to share more and more, but I request all of you to have patience. Then we can discuss these pastimes in great detail. So thank you very much. I'm opening up the floor if there is any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Hare Krishna, Shridarji. Yeah.
That Kurukshetra was Puri Jagannath. Puri Jagannath.
Yeah, the Lord Chaitanya's mood when he saw Jagannath would be that of seeing Krishna in Kurukshetra. So Kurukshetra Krishna is actually Dwarkadish Krishna. But that Dwarkadish had come to Kurukshetra. The gopis came from Vrindavan. So this was an in-between place where they met. He came from Dwarka and they came from Vrindavan. And their point was, we want to take Krishna from Kurukshetra to Of course, Kurukshetra, because they happened to see him in Kurukshetra, but the whole idea was to pull him from Dwarka and take him to Vrindavan. Yeah. So technically, of course, the Shri Mandir represents Dwarka technically, because that is like the Dwarka Dham, that is the abode of the Lord. Lakshmi Devi is also there. But the Lord's mood when he sees was that of, oh, I am seeing Krishna in Kurukshetra, Dwarkadish in Kurukshetra.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah, yes, Sudhir Sundar Prabhu.
Prabhu, can I just confirm a point that
Yeah.
I think I don't know, I've either heard in your class or what is that maybe mentioned somewhere. Actually, what is that? Vrindavan Krishna actually he doesn't leave Vrindavan though. The what Krishna which can leave Vrindavan is he supposed to be Vasudev Krishna? Am I right, Prabhu? I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah. Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. Shyam Sundar Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. So Shyam Sundar is never manifest outside Vrindavan. That's correct. That's why that is Dwarkadish Krishna, who is in Kurukshetra. Yeah, but of course, after Krishna left Vrindavan, so to say, of course, in one sense he left, but his leaving is, it is said he actually becomes unmanifest. So he never leaves Vrindavan, but his form of Shyam Sundar becomes unmanifest to the world when apparently he leaves Vrindavan. So it is said that when he came to the border of Mathura and Vrindavan, when Lord Krishna entered into the lake where he takes bath along with Akrura, it is said, from Krishna took a dip and out came not Shyam Sundar. Shyam Sundar remained there. The one who came out was Mathura Krishna. Because Mathura Krishna is also different again from Dwarka Krishna. So anyway, these are all deeper things. But yes, Krishna in his original form of Shyam Sundar never leaves Vrindavan. Praveen Prabhu, you wanted to say something?
Actually, I had that same question, like, why Krishna never went back to Vrindavan. So I think your answer just now explains that.
Yeah. So these topics are, very difficult to understand for us. These are all post PhD topics. So yeah, so what we have to understand, and this is what our acharyas tell us, that in the spiritual realm, separation from Krishna is also a type of union. Because in the ecstasy of separation, the devotees also feel a very, very deep connection. In fact, they feel a more deeper connection with Krishna. That is how the great souls explain. So while separation from Krishna may seem like a misery, it is not like the material situation of desertion. Oh, the husband deserted his wife or his lover and went away. So unfair, she's so miserable. It's not quite like that. And because Krishna is everywhere and Krishna is within the core of our heart, when a devotee experiences separation from Krishna, within that separation, the devotee experiences the feeling of connection with Krishna very deeply. And that separation is a kind of ecstasy. Even though there may be crying, even though it may seem externally to be a pain, there is a different kind of ecstasy. So these things we can understand only when we have some appreciation of this. So these are not equatable. So we don't have to pity the gopis. Sometimes we go, so sad for them. No, so sad for us. That we have no attachment to Krishna.
So sad that we are not able to appreciate or understand it.
Yes. Yes. These are so the gopis are never separated from Krishna, and Krishna was there, and Krishna would give. They would feel Krishna's presence. The thing is, when we chant Krishna's name, when we discuss Harikatha, when we deeply remember him, in Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Vishnu Smaranam, these three, Krishna's presence can be actively felt. And this for us also as sadhakas, when we are intensely absorbed in either hearing, chanting, or remembering Krishna, we ourselves can sense or feel, based on our level of absorption, Krishna's presence. So this is not some totally ununderstandable thing for the sadhakas. Even sadhakas at our level can to some extent appreciate this principle. The level that we have become absorbed, and to the extent that there is intensity in our bhajan. So that is the beauty of Krishna consciousness. That is why we don't have to go into spiritual world to experience Krishna. We can experience here through him, through the holy Nam Namakari Bahudanja Sarvashaktis. Krishna is present fully in his holy name. Okay. Yes,
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, can I just ask another question? Prabhu, what is that? Sadhakas, can we focus our what is that worship and kind of more towards Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rather than Krishna, because sometimes we see that the expectation to what is that worship and the requirements of what is that worship Radha and Krishna seems to be too far. So if our mood is, I focus my mood more and also to what serve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Is it are we in right mode or
yeah. That is good. That is good. We should approach Krishna through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his instructions. So we can worship Gaur Nitai, or we should worship Gaur Nitai. Of course, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructs us to chant Krishna's names, we have to chant Krishna's name. Some Appa Sampradaya say, no, we should chant Gaura's name. Well, of course, we can chant Gaura's name as Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda, but we don't replace Mahamantra by Gaura's names. Because that is not Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction. We do what the Acharyas instruct us, what the personality instructs us. So we worship Lord Chaitanya, but Lord Chaitanya is instructing us chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and worship him. So for us at our level, we do Vaidhi Bhakti of Radha Krishna, and we also do Vaidhi Bhakti of Gaur Nitai or the Panchatattva. And we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. It is adequate if we worship Gaur Nitai also. It is not a must that we have to worship Radha Krishna. That if that is what you are saying, then yes. If that is what you are asking, then yes, it is adequate to worship Gaur Nitai and chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That will give us, that will lead us to Vraj Prem. That is adequate.
Okay, Prabhu. Thanks, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Yes, Madhya.
Prabhu, because when they say that, because the offenses if you are when you're praying to Radha and Krishna will be more, because we are so unqualified. Consider myself more unqualified. So like Prabhu was saying, like when we are praying to Gaur Nitai, they are more merciful. So even if you are inadequate in your offering, so that it will be more accepted. And sometimes I even think like, sometimes even to Gaur Nitai, you feel the offering is so unqualified. So I asked Tulasi Maharani, because I asked to go through her. So is that a proper way? If you think that, because nothing is done without offering a Tulasi Maharani. So can you direct your prayer through Tulasi Maharani, through Gaur Nitai, and then to Radha Krishna?
What our acharyas have said is, I have not heard like that, but what our acharyas say is, for us, the immediate representative of Gaur Nitai and Radha Krishna is ultimately our own spiritual master and Prabhupada. So my suggestion and my understanding is that it is best we follow what Prabhupada told us, that he say that I'm not qualified. Guru Maharaj, you take this offering. Guru Maharaj will give to Prabhupada. Prabhupada will give through all of them, through Vrinda Devi, through Mahaprabhu, Gaurnitai, to Radha Krishna. So our immediate deliverer, our immediate connection to all the previous acharyas, including the deities, ultimately is our own spiritual master. So the best way to look at it is to pray to our spiritual master. Yeah. But what you said is correct. Yeah, in the terms of Gaur Nitai do not consider offenses, and that is the reason why in Kali Yuga it is better to approach. So, like what we discussed in previous classes, Gaur Nitai will make us qualified to worship Radha Krishna. See, even our worship of Radha Krishna is actually a Vaidhi worship. Our sampradaya is ultimately meant for bringing us to the level of Raganuga and then Ragatmika Bhakti eventually. But that's not a matter of sadhana. Ragatmika is not sadhana. Raganuga is not something which we can just imitate. Raganuga, one has to attain that level of spontaneous attraction, which eventually will be blessed with, because Raganuga is not a platform which we can attain by effort. It is a matter of grace. So our worship at this level is mainly sadhana worship. It is Vaidhi worship. So we should continue by blessings of Guru and Krishna. If we are sincerely hankering for it, then by Gaur Nitai and Guru's blessings, we will one day come to that level where these higher things will become revealed to us.
Thank you, Prabhu.
There is a question by Sachi Prema Mataji in the chat. She's asking, when will we understand Krishna? So the answer is, when Krishna will reveal himself to us, then we will understand Krishna. So it is said, Sevon mukhe hi jivadu swayam eva svaratyadaha. So Krishna reveals. See, these are not, we cannot crash our way into realization of Krishna. So these are matters of grace, and these things come when Prabhupada has been very clear that we have to please Krishna to reveal himself to us. And Krishna is pleased only when we take a mood of humble, sincere devotion. And that is why we will see, for those who have been practicing for a significant period of time, if they look back in their own spiritual life, we can see that our advancement comes when we are able to please Guru, please Krishna. It doesn't come just because we did something. Of course, that doing something may please Krishna and please Guru, that's a different thing. So it is not the doing, it is ultimately the pleasing which actually attracts the blessings. And when the blessings come, it results in us being able to both understand Krishna and Krishna consciousness more. Initially, it is not so much about understanding Krishna. It is about understanding Krishna consciousness. The process, the sambandha, the abhideya, and the prayojan better. Understanding Krishna is a very, very high. Of course, understanding Krishna gradually comes along with it. So as we become better at pleasing Krishna, the more Krishna reveals to us, and the more we are able to do better sadhana, then Krishna is more happier, then Krishna reveals more, then we can do better. So this is a loop, which is a self-nourishing loop, which eventually takes us to complete realization.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah. So all we have to focus on.
That,
Yeah.
I asked you that question because I just, I had some devotees, who are doing very good seva to Krishna, and they see that, what they tell me is they have seen Krishna, and, and so like they already know like what he likes, what he doesn't like, like that sort of thing. So I was just thinking, so that means we are not like really come to that stage. Of course, I don't expect to, because we are not come to that level. But I guess we have that so many stages to go through and all that to reach there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
Isn't it, Prabhu?
yeah. But see, seeing Krishna, understanding Krishna, these are not cheap things. So yeah. So I mean, not everything that everybody says may be true at face value. So we have to be careful to not. I mean, not that I'm saying somebody deliberately lies, but sometimes we, as sadhakas, we end up, speculating and hallucinating too much, and then we may end up thinking of things as some divine revelation where it is not. So it is important. That is why even in our own progress, that we are properly guided by
The
Guru
Guru.
and senior Vaishnavas. Because otherwise, we may end up thinking ourselves more advanced than we actually are, and that is actually a very dangerous situation. And that is precisely what Prabhupada repeatedly warns us, and that is known as the Sahajiya mentality, where we take Krishna very cheaply and Krishna's realization and access very cheap. So our means of assessing that we are pleasing Krishna is very simple. When we see that we are developing more taste for chanting the holy names, for hearing Hari Katha, for humble service, when we are developing in humility, where we feel like chanting more, we feel like serving more, we are developing divine qualities. Things which we were not able to understand earlier with respect to spiritual principles, spiritual tattva, automatically start being understood when we see that we are being blessed with abilities and skills which we didn't have, which are suddenly manifesting in us. All these are indications of Krishna being pleased and granting us more empowerment and more realization. So yes, there can be very special experiences which are mystical, but we need to reconfirm them with our spiritual master before concluding that it is indeed so.
No, I have not experienced it, but
No, it's not that we. No, I'm not talking about you. But since you mentioned, some people are saying that they have seen Krishna. So I don't want to comment on anybody individually, because I cannot judge for anybody else. But I'm just making a general point that these are not small things. Yeah, well, one should be very careful in such things, because otherwise we end up becoming a sahajiya.
Yes, Prabhu.
And that becomes detrimental to our own advancement. And that is precisely the reason Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells us to be in the mood of separation from Krishna, not that I am seeing Krishna. See, the Goswamis also never said I am seeing Krishna. He said, I don't know where is Krishna. And then suddenly we see a new sadhaka who's barely been chanting for a few years, says, oh, I saw Krishna. Krishna like this. I'm not saying it is impossible, but that's something which cannot be accepted at face value. Okay, wonderful. Anything else? Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, just a quick point before we close. Saturday is Ekadashi fasting. So please make a note. We'll have our class on Saturday evening, but since we'll be meeting only in the evening, I'll post it in the group, but just a quick reminder. Okay, thank you very much. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Shri Panchatattva ki jai, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami.
Jai.
Thank you.
Thank you.